Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me. Let me say we are living in challenging times. On the one hand, ongoing globalization and global competition, digitization and a digital revolution. On the other hand, our development in our neighborhood, migration, refugees, instability, terrorism. We have autocrats in Ankara and in Moscow. We have daily tweets coming from DC, coming from autocrats as well. And so, what is the future of our European Union? What is your expectation to our European institutions? How Europe should be in 2025? And seeing what is our European future means to speak about European budget, how to finance European projects, how to solve problems on a European level by EU finances, and how to be a union of solidarity. Seeing your beautiful country, Latvia, and if you compare your country here 1991, here 2004, and here 2017, 2 times a 13 years period. I think beyond all problems you have, it's a success story. Me having been in Riga 3 times, this metropole is more attractive than ever before. Or looking to your GDP per capita, coming from 2,000 euro via 8,000 now, more than 20,000 euro. We have an average of 30,000 in our EU 27. So it's an ongoing success story into the right direction. But how to optimize, how to maybe modernize it, and what is your expectation to me and to us, to the European Commission, Parliament, and to our European budget beyond 2020? We have mainly 2 problems. First is Brexit. A net payer is leaving our European Union. We are losing after a transition phase about 12 up to 15 billion euro revenues, net revenues, year by year. And we have to see traditional instruments, cohesion, our agricultural pillars, structural funds on the one hand, and new challenges as security and defense, as migration, as fight against terrorism, as border protection, border control, maybe. And we have to avoid such a conflict, to finance migration via cuts in cohesion. Or it would destroy our European Union. Ongoing, it's a union of peace, of common values, of a single market, of a common currency, and of freedom for citizens, for goods, for investments, for services. So we are sending out questions. There's a white paper process. On top, we have a reflection paper, EU finances post-2020. And on this basis, we have to develop a new multi-annual financial framework for the next decade, for our European Union, member states, regions, local authorities, and seeing which expectations our European citizens in all member states have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I open this up to questions from the audience, a very quick question on my part. So you mentioned, well, first of all, what is approximately the timetable? So as I understand, you want some blueprint of how this is going to work by next spring already, a certain idea of how the European Union in the next budgetary period is going to go about it. Is that more or less your timetable?
The Commission is preparing a proposal for next 5 up to 7 years.
Yeah.
And is coming out with this multi-annual framework in May next year.
Yes. So it is a timely debate right now to understand where we want to get going. Another aspect I wanted to be just to clarify, Brexit. You already mentioned, obviously, Britain, a big net contributor, pays a lot of money in the EU coffers. That money probably is going to be gone from. But is it so? For 2019 and 2020, so the last years of the current cycle, are we pretty much sure that Brexit is not going to affect them, that the Brexit is going to affect really the next planning period? So are we safe pretty much for the next 2 years, or we have to make some cuts and to make some painful decisions already, immediately?
The best would be to send this question to London, to Ms. May and to Phil Hammond and to Boris Johnson. But no doubt we have a 3-step problem. Up to end of March 19, UK is an ongoing member with all rights and obligations, with British revenues and commitments and payments back to UK. There's an ongoing, second step, as ongoing multi-annual financial framework up to end of 2020.
Yeah.
It's agreed by 28 member states by unanimity. So our clear expectation is UK will fulfill all obligations and have all rights as agreed up to end of 2020.
Okay.
If not, they would get problems with us and we would have problems with them. And then afterwards, UK out and next MFF is a new dimension, maybe with a transition phase, to get extraordinary payments from UK to fulfill their bill. And after this transition phase, we will be a EU 27 without UK and with a revenue gap coming from Brexit about 12 up to 15 billion.
Okay, that revenue gap is something that you think, obviously this is a matter of conversation, but is that gap supposed to be filled with other money from other contributors, from other, mechanisms of how to finance EU budget, or we just have to more or less be realistic and say, okay, the EU budget is actually going to be smaller because of Brexit, or you think it should be reasonable to expect that it will be compensated for by other financial means?
Indeed, we have to close the revenue gap because the European Union is the only level in which we have no deficit. We cannot ask any bank to give us money via credit. National levels, regional, local levels, they have the right, and they use the right, often too much, to ask for credits. We have no debt, so every payments decision needs a revenue at the same time. And to close the gap, we are proposing 50% cuts in the existing structure of our annual budgets and 50% fresh money coming from EU 27.
Right, okay. So I think we sketched out the challenge lying ahead of us. Anyone wants to get involved? Yes, please. Could you introduce yourself? Because we are being streamed online. Yes, over here. Oh, there, please, yeah. So the only sort of obstacle to getting involved is that you need to have a microphone, because otherwise people elsewhere than in this room will not be able to hear you. But please, go on, yes.
Hello, Aaron Eglitas, Bloomberg News. One of the main drivers of EU integration has been the Franco-German alliance. What do you make of the Jamaica coalition in Germany, and how do you think that will affect Emmanuel Macron's vision for Europe?
Thank you.
In Berlin, at the moment, 4 political groups are checking their common understanding or differences. The Greens, Liberals, the Christian Democratic Union, and our sister party coming from Bavaria, the CSU. And my expectation is that it's clear before end of November, is there a good chance to come to a coalition? And if there's a good chance, we will have a new government before Christmas. And we should have a new government before Christmas. And afterwards, there will be a bilateral between Paris and Berlin for to see how to support our European Union and how to come together knowing what President Macron is proposing. I think the main positive thing of Macron is his pro-European approach. Beyond details, saying, I am in France, we are a shareholder of Europe. Brussels is not an enemy. Brussels is not the contrary. I'm a shareholder of Brussels. I am obliged to support Brussels, to use European tools. I think this is a really great understanding, the relationship between France and our union related.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, please? Over there. Yep.
Gerd Seglitz, economist. I want to ask you about one novelty which will be in the new budgetary framework, the European Public Prosecutor's Office. How that might play out. Will it prosecute, investigate only projects from the new budgetary framework or also from the current one? And how it may look in reality, for instance, in Latvia, if we have some suspicious EU funding project, I mean, what would that mean? Somebody from Brussels coming, and so, thank you.
The EPO legislation now is ready. We have a common decision of Council and Parliament. Now we are starting to implement EPO, being operative at January 2021. So just in time to control and accompany our next multi-annual financial period. And EPO, together with Olaf is an ongoing investigating administration. Together with Olaf and Eurojust, EPO is responsible for attacks against the European budget, corruption, or abuse of European money. But several programs of our European Union are connected to national programs, so co-financing or shared competencies. And if EPO is checking cohesion funds or the second pillar of agricultural funds or research funds, Horizon 2020, and there is, in addition, a national financial support. So indirectly, EPO is relevant to avoid damages of your national money as well, closely connected to your national bodies.
Okay, before I give the floor to other questions over here, yeah, thank you very much. I have noted you. There's a question coming through the social media that I think is, quite relevant in the sense that when the conversation sort of focuses on the money, there are a lot of parties getting nervous, right? Who is going to get what and stuff like that. So I suppose this is a question from an NGO, one of the farmers' NGO, and this goes something like this. So Latvia, for a couple of budgetary cycles, have fought for direct payments whose level would be equal to that of Western Europe. But now, can we expect going forward that if funding needs to be cut, can we actually expect in the future that at least the current level of financing will be maintained? So in terms of agriculture, do you foresee a lot of debate maybe, and the whole restructuring of the system, and actually the share of the future EU budget decreasing for agricultural subsidies and support.
Because we have a Brexit, we need some cuts, but cuts without damaging our instruments. So there can't be a guarantee. There cannot be a guarantee that there's no cut in the common agricultural policy. But an acceptable dimension, I can guarantee. And at the moment we are preparing a communication. What is the future of our common agricultural policy? And on this basis we are developing our heading for our next multi-annual financial framework. Our intention is to modernize our agricultural policy, to simplify the rules behind. And with my reflection paper, we sent out a lot of questions. Is there a good reason for capping? Should we have co-financing by national budgets? Yes or no?
All right.
So it's a lot of open questions, and for the moment they have to be neutral for to be credible.
Okay.
Getting bad answers, expectations from farmers' associations, from NGOs, from environmental groups, from member states, other stakeholders, industries. We are analyzing this, and then we come to answers there too. But let me say, indeed, per acre, per hectare, there's difference between Latvia and France. And we are reducing this difference year by year, since years and in the short and mid-term future. As long as there are different levels of operative costs, some differences of funding are acceptable. But it goes into a direction that at the end of this process, all farmers are on the same level, getting same amount of money with same conditions all over Europe.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is a very, sensitive point in Latvia as well as in other countries. So thank you. I mean, obviously, I appreciate that at this stage of conversations, there's lack of complete clarity, but nevertheless, an important stage in that conversation. Anders, please, yes, over here. So yes, other questions as well will be taken. So quick remarks and questions, Anders, please.
Andres Gobiņš, 2 questions. One on cohesion policy and your personal approach towards cohesion funds as one of the bases of the European Union, laid down also in the treaties. What will be your personal standpoint in continuing cohesion funds for Latvia and other countries less privileged than the EU average? And the second is about EU own resources. Do you see a fair chance that there would be own resources for the EU in close future, as envisaged by a lot of big politicians like Juncker and others? Thank you.
Own resources, therefore we had organized a high-level discussion under the lead of Mario Monti, the former Italian Prime Minister, and their report is proposing up to 9 new instruments. We are checking these instruments, and it's my ambition to take 2 or 3 of them as a part of our revenue side to diversify our resources beyond resources coming from national budgets. And your first question, yes, I think it's a must and it's meaningful to continue with cohesion policies, because to leverage all regions, to reduce the distance of our GDP, cohesion funds ongoing are future-proof.
Yeah, that's another sensitive topic, bearing in mind how large a share of public investment is coming from European money. So, yes, please, over there.
Hello, my name is Baiba Rubes Oettinger. I'm the chairperson of the joint venture that is mandated to deliver Rail Baltica, your very significant economic security and transport investment. To date, the project is calculated at a 5.8 billion euro investment. We have enough monies from the Connecting Europe facilities to proceed with the project right now. However, the Baltic states are committed to continue the project, subject to the question that an intensity of 85% of the financing come from the EU and the Connecting Europe facility. Now, we are not the government institution and cannot participate in the MFF discussions going forward for the totality of the project. So I would like to very bluntly kindly request that you earmark for the next MFF 3.5 billion euro, which is needed. And the rest of the co-financing will come from the 3 Baltic member states.
Well, thank you very much. Don't you love the blunt questions?
I take note, and I'm aware. In my former portfolio, energy, I could see how important interconnections are. Gas interconnectors, electricity connectors, for to integrate from Finland to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, to Poland, the whole Eastern Baltic region into our European markets. Same with motorways, same with railway systems. So Rail Baltica is appreciated, ongoing. I can guarantee for my person, in my proposal, the money is included. I can nearly guarantee in the Commission's decision, it may be the same. If my colleague Dombrovskis is willing to fight, and I'm sure he has to fight, you should push him, but he is willing. And other colleagues from this region, so it's a part of our Commission's proposal. Unfortunately, we are living in a democracy. So it's not a dictatorship. So we have to ask the Council, even the European Council and the Parliament. And the problem is the Council has to come to a decision by unanimity. So we need for a strong Connecting Europe facility being comparable to our 2 days CEF. We need them all, 27 member states, even better spending member states. So my question to you is, couldn't you fly to Stockholm and Copenhagen, to Den Haag and to Vienna to convince these 4 better spending member states? Then it's done.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other requests for earmarks, please?
Thank you. Ariadna Abeltiņa. I am representing Free Trade Union Confederation of Latvia. And we are looking very much forward to the proclamation of the European Pillar of Social Rights in November in Gothenburg Summit. So this requires also an immediate action plan to implement all 20 priorities of the pillar, and subsequently it requires adequate financial resources. So is the new financial framework ready to deal with it? Thank you.
As you know, there's a reflection paper coming from the Commission related to the social pillars. It's a broad communication and it's a legislative proposal, both. Now we have to wait what the European Council is deciding, as you mentioned, in a few days. And afterwards, this decision is a kind of a blueprint for our next multi-annual financial framework. But be sure, beyond our ceilings and our limited room de maneuver, we are willing to stabilize social programs in our next MFF. So youth employment initiative. And flexible instrument for my colleague Tyson and Sir DG. And we have to see which level the Council is accepting at the end of the day. But it will be an relevant instrument to stabilize our social dimension.
Thank you. Yes, please, over there.
Thank you. Sanda Lepiņa, the CEO of the Latvian Banking Federation. I, first of all, wanted to thank you for engaging in the discussion here in person. It's always very welcome. My question would be how ready you see yourselves being in using both the convening and the pressing power that the Commission has in opening up some of the discussions on how the future of the economy will look, and also the efficiency of spending or the cost control side. And I'll give some more examples. So in terms of the future of the economy, it's very clear, you mentioned at the beginning, digital transformation taking shape, the nature of the economic activity, the place, all of that is changing. So the tax systems would need to adapt along the way. And maybe the discussion around the MFF would actually allow to take forward the discussion around the tax base, usage of VAT gap that is quite huge across the EU, huge reserves potentially from the revenue side. On the other side, the efficiency of spending, the cost effectiveness with which the banking sector is dealing on a daily basis. Are we ready to open up the discussion on use of robotics, artificial intelligence in managing all sorts of registers, managing all sorts of public procedures across the member states that actually pose significant efficiencies? Thanks.
Thank you.
A lot of questions. And let me say, our European Union has limited instruments. What can we do? Firstly, we can continue to complete our single market. That's our main instrument. One single market, 500 million citizens, investors, consumers, users, one standard, no protection, more or less no corruption. Afterwards, it's about innovation and our Horizon 2020, and to integrate SMEs and startups, not just global industries, but SMEs as well. The third point, we have to come to a digital single market. For the moment, we don't have, as well with one standard, one data protection regulation, one cybersecurity strategy, common spectrum policy, European research projects, quantum technology, high performance computing, and so on. Completing the banking union, the capital market union, for which my colleague Dombrovskis is in lead. Knowing how different our banks and financial institutions are, from saving banks in Germany to global players in UK or in Amsterdam or in Paris, with some problems in some member states. We're doing our best. Mainly, we have a problem with the Council. The Council is not really ready to accept all of our Commission's proposal. We have to see what do we need for the Eurozone member states, in special, beyond EU 27. How complete and how to deepen our European Monetary Union. What should be with the ESM? Should it be as a European Monetary Fund? Do we need the national fund ongoing? So a lot of questions, and all of these are top of our agenda, and we have additional 18 months to come to decisions before we have European elections. So to speed up now is our ambition. and therefore we have a clear agenda. December, deepening European Monetary Union, completing banking union before summer next year, and so on. In general, to Europeanize our rules and standards. But again, 28 member states, not all of them want to accept the same speed the Commission is proposing.
Okay. Anyone else wants to get involved? Yes, please. Right there as well.
I'm Trubels, Fiscal Discipline Council. And as we can hear from the discussion here, if you would open the floor and ask for suggestions, there will be many, many requests. And it's clearly there is a lot of expectations about the new financial perspective, and confronted with objective need to reduce the size of the budget. And from there, two questions. Do you see any positions, expenditure positions in a EU budget which will be ring-fenced from any cuts? And secondly, what the Commission plans to do to, let's say, leverage financing from other sources? So EU budget can be used as leverage to attract financing, for example, from private sector. Thank you.
Second point, we are using financial instruments, loans, guarantees, as good as meaningful. The Juncker plan, our EIB, other instruments, we are analyzing these instruments, and we are optimizing these instruments. But as so often, I met some mayors before, mainly they need cash. Mainly, sorry, to renovate a school, a high school building, or a hospital. It's nothing for investment bankers. And it's nothing for private funds. It's just about public funding. So European money and national or regional invest from national and regional budgets. So it's a mix, grants, loans, and guarantees. And your first question, I would like to avoid cuts in our Horizon program. So Horizon 2027, or another name, we have to invest more in research and innovation. Let me say, South Korea is investing 4% of its GDP in research and innovation. The US, 3.5% plus Pentagon investments. Europe, 2%. By the way, Italy, 1%. With such a level, you never can come back to competitiveness. Me coming from a German region, Baden-Württemberg, southwest Germany, there's one thing what makes me proud as a former regional politician. We are investing 4.8% in research and innovation. And so I want to avoid cuts for our next research program. We have to invest more and better and more in a coherent European public-private team.
Thank you. Please, over here.
I'm Karl-Heinz Barral. I'm coming from an other part. I'm not an institution or something. I'm a real investor coming from Günther Oettinger's home area, yes, as well, from Stuttgart. And I want simply to take something from the practical side. Yes, it's also nice to talk about billions, millions. What foreign investors facing in East Europe, not only in Latvia, more and more, is a very offending nationalism, which hides every deals against foreign investors in all countries. I hear it from other countries, not only from Latvia. Who is financing this? From the aristocrats, what you before telling indirectly, giving people flags from their nations and making this. What think European Commission to do in future against actions of countries which going totally against European laws, and openly even told from politicians, we do this, we know it's against European law, but we do it, what penalties will be faced in future for these countries and what they can expect? Because I think it's a very big impact on Brexit that the British guys thinking laws from a contract should be held it. And if investors seeing a contract and believing this and investing in a country and later everything is pushed forward and forward endless and suddenly come completely different situation up on them, what decides European Commission to do against countries who implement laws which go completely against European Union laws? Like, for example, here is a law implemented that you need to talk the language when you want to invest with B2. It's already for laughing, but it's not for laughing when you invested there 10 million in this area, yes?
All right.
If it would be so, we have to check, is it discrimination or is it non-legal protection? We have some experience looking to Hungary, looking to the media sector and Poland, looking to others. From my analysis for the moment, Latvia is an open member state, accepting or even attracting investments. If it's not so, let us know. The Commission is the competition and market police. We have to check it. Case by case, in a neutral, objective manner. And our rules are rule of law, no discrimination, and no protection against European partners. And I think one of our most attractive arguments to invest in Europe is the one and only single market, without national borders. And this we have to protect and to defend in general and concretely when we get informations, when we have to check a concrete case or a concrete national legislation. Our contact dates are transparent.
Okay, thank you very much. A quick question over there, and I then have a couple of things coming over the social networks as well. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Dieters Dēls. I'm from Reuters News Agency. I have a question regarding the Eurozone budget. There have been discussions that there should be the Eurozone budget in place, and France, for instance, wants to see a separate like budget. Having said that, the Commission has said that there should be like a dedicated pool of money within the overall EU budget, and then it should be spent on some specific targets. I mean, could you please specify how big such a pool of money should be, and what are the things that specifically it should be spent on? Thank you.
I'm ambitious, but realistic and ambitious. For the moment, we have a budget with about 150 billion revenues and commitments, payments, so expenditures. It's 1% of our EU28 GDP GNI. Firstly, we have to close our gaps for the next MFF. And this will be a difficult issue. Brexit gap and gap because of new responsibilities. President Macron, I think his speeches are really music in my ears, but he is proposing on top of our EU27 MFF an Eurozone budget. With revenues about 3 up to 4% of the GDP. I'm too old for to dream. 3 up to 4% on top to 1 or more percent. Do you think that Den Haag, Copenhagen, or Vienna, so Vienna and Den Haag inside the Eurozone, Copenhagen, Stockholm outside, will accept it? I don't think so. Or let me say, if you are under construction to build a house, firstly you need a fundament. Secondly, you need a first level, a second level. And if this all is ready, you can think about a third level. But not to speak about a third level without having a stable fundament, first and second level, and we don't have a fundament and a first and second level being stable for the moment. And a general argument, a Eurozone budget was proposed in 2011 for the first time and discussed afterwards. Third times, it was a Eurozone with 17 members. Now we are 19. Croatia today is saying we want to be a candidate. Bulgaria will announce it in January. And third times we have been EU 28, now on the way to EU 27. The difference, looking to GDP of Euro 19 to EU 27, it's 85% and 15%. Should we have an Eurozone budget for 85% of our GDP? I think we need a stable and ambitious EU 27 budget with some instruments for times of crisis or stagnation or recession for Eurozone members and for candidates.
Okay, a couple of questions coming in from various NGOs. So this is an NGO that supports SMEs, small and medium enterprises. And the question is basically this: should we review going forward the access to financing instruments that SMEs can actually use to increase their business activity? Shouldn't there be a rethinking with regard specifically to small and medium enterprises?
Rethinking is always a good idea. We have functioning instruments inside of our budget, direct funding and via EIB and promotional national banks. We are absolving a spending review to check it, to fine-tune, optimize and modernize it. And then we will continue to have financial instruments related to startups and to traditional SMEs.
Okay, and another one. We need a stronger, safer Europe. Are we ready to invest in security to adapt to global challenges? I don't know, this is more of a remark and an observation, but I'm actually wondering, what is your perception, traveling to different states and talking to different governments? Is there an increased readiness to recognize that in terms of security challenges, migration, borders, and rest of it, that the governments are actually, on board, thinking that a greater share of EU monies and EU budget should go to that challenge, even if it takes something away from more established sectors of EU financing?
There is a momentum. Member states are seeing fight against terrorism, border protection and border control, how to reduce reasons for refugees in 2025. Now, by investments and development aid, defense research, defense industries. There's a momentum to invest together, to standardize, to coordinate, to have common tenders and a common strategy. And all of these new challenges, they need beyond moderation and coordination, sometimes beyond legislation, they need funding. And that is the reason why I'm preparing a new heading, Security, Safety and Defense.
Okay, right. So anything else really quickly, or I'll take another one from the social networks and then we go about closing this. So A couple of people are wondering what is your personal take on the perspective. It has been discussed in various scenarios in your white paper as well. Basically, the whole idea of introduction of an EU-wide tax that could, supplement EU budget so that the budget is not that entirely dependent on national contributions. So, do you foresee that it is at all possible to think about in that manner, to go with financial transactions tax was one of the examples that could maybe be implemented. Do you foresee that actually, becoming a reality in foreseeable future?
As I mentioned, this is a part of Mario Monti's report. And again, I am ambitious but realistic. So I don't think that a European tax for which we need unanimity will be accepted. I'm dead before we have 27 member states behind a European tax, I'm sure. And you mentioned the financial transaction tax.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending story.
Sure.
Near to a fake, sorry.
So
near to a fake, sorry. It started in 2008. Now it's a 10 years dimension. So maybe for the MFF beyond 2040, it's ready, but not for my next MFF. Realistic means to speak about CO2 and speak about the emission trade system. We have it. Climate change policies are European policies. Paris was a European success story. Emission reduction up to 2030, 2050 is a European ambition. And there's a functioning emission trade system based on a European legislation. But the money, all European, but the money goes to national budgets.
Yeah.
And to take this money for, or partially, for our next MFF, for revenues, would be my idea.
Okay, we've got just 2 minutes left, and I'd like to conclude with a more general question that has been on a lot of people's minds thinking about Europe and its future. Basically, you have spent a considerable amount of time in Brussels, but also in German politics. You have met, politicians in different countries. What would you say, in more general terms, what is the single biggest challenge that Europe has to tackle going forward? I mean, we're a bit out of the period after the Brexit and in American election times. And a year ago, the conversation was very, gloomy about the prospects of European integration going forward. Now it seems that that has receded a bit, but nevertheless, a lot of problems remain. I mean, the whole, sets of differences between the eastern and western member states and northern and southern, and different, politicians with different ideas about Europe coming to power in various countries. So, in your experience, from what does not allow you to sleep at night there? Thinking about Europe.
I'm sleeping at night, sorry.
All right, that's good.
As you do, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I'm too nervous about how this is going to end.
Let me say, if you compare our European Union to other public institutions or to other continents, take North America, take South America, take Asia, take Africa, we are the most stable and the most attractive continent. I'm convinced to live here is a high level of life quality. We are ongoing quite competitive. We are a continent of security and safety, of common values. So we are an ongoing stable and attractive continent. But with the most unstable neighborhood. No continent has such an unstable neighborhood. From Crimea, Ukraine, Russia, to Middle East, Iraq, Syria, to the Maghreb zone, to Eritrea, Palestine. So we have to stabilize our competitiveness. We have to secure our values. We have to deepen our union. We need more Europe internally. And we have to invest more to stabilize our neighborhood, to fight against terrorism, to reduce the reasons for refugees 2025, to export life quality, democracy, market-based economies, and values. So stabilizing internally and exporting our values to our neighbors. I think that's the main issue. And we need citizens, as you are, and taxpayers, as you are, who are willing to think and to act and to invest in such a dimension.
Okay, I'll conclude with something that we, in the neighborhood, these neighbors' jokes, I don't know, Southern Germans joke about Austrians maybe, or someone else?
Bavarians, not
Bavarians, yeah, right. So you were yesterday in a citizens' dialogue in Estonia. Is this better?
Same Baltic quality.
I didn't expect anything else. Well, thank you very much. We're out of time.